O labing makagagahom nga amay namon sa langit, mahinuklugon nga laon nga tagtugas ang langit, hangin, kalayo, tubig kag duta. Tanda ining imong timawa, kabay ining pag-ampo, magadulot sa amon sang kabuhi nga himaya. Salamat sa mga bugay nga imo ginpaambit sa amon. Salamat sa kabuhi nga ginadulot mo sa amon nga himpit. Salamat sa maayo nga panahon kag ilabi na gid sang imo katutom sa amon. Bendisyon ni ang imo katawhan. Bendisyon ni ang ila mga palangabuhian. Bendisyon ni ang mga panggas sa amon mga talamnan. Bendisyon ni ang ilang nga paglugayawan sa iban nga kapungsuran. Kabay makalabot sila nga walay sablag sa ila pagapadulungan. Kag ilabi na gid, bendisyon ni ining isla sang Negros nga amon natawhan. Kinahalad namon ang ining pag-ampo para sa imo kadayawan.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, good morning to my friends and colleagues around the Visayas, Visayan region of the Philippines. Good morning. And to our guests and to those who are watching around the world, Mayong Aga, good morning. Hope you are all well and safe in these times. No? This is our 6th month for the Viva XCon, or the Visayas Islands Visual Arts Exhibition and Conference. And we started in November, and we started with the virtual conference 1, focusing on the futures of education, family, business and economics, and also politics, no? So now, and politics, rather government, rather. So before we proceed, Viva XCon, I just want to give a little background for our attendees who are new to this session. Viva XCon is a Visayas-wide biennial which started in Bacolod City in 1990, whose hosting has since then toured the Visayan Islands every 2 years without fail. This includes the islands of Negros, Cebu, Panay, Samar, Leyte, Bohol, Guimaras, Siquijor, and Boracay. It actually covers the whole central Philippine area. Viva XCon is a local initiative towards the promotion and strengthening of cooperation among visual art groups in the region. It has become an effective artist-centered blueprint with which other like initiatives have been patterned after. Given the reality of this pandemic, the limitation imposed by necessary precautionary measures, the impact of such to the mindset of artists, Viva XCon has recalibrated the festival design to engage creative spirits in the virtual dynamics that is interactive, online, and will bring together the creative community so as to rise to the challenge of the times. Our objectives is to empower local art practices to be relevant to the challenges of the changing times, to explore opportunities for collaboration and forging of resources among sectors of the community, to respond to related issues proactively, and to design a preferred future for the artist community. Now, this today we are on our first session for this April, and I hope everyone is safe and well. So we are featuring Kalibutan Seminar Node. Kalibutan Seminar Node works Disclose, Materialities of Art. Kalibutan is the exhibition component, one of the exhibitions of Viva XCon. Now, to proceed without extending my time, I would like to introduce our first speaker, our curator for Region 8, one of the curators for Region 8. Mars Edwinson Briones is a faculty member of the Division of Humanities at the University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban College. He completed his MA Art Studies program at the University of the Philippines, Diliman in June 2020. In 2014, he underwent the Qualified Trainers Workshop under the AFS Intercultural Learning Program in New Delhi. He was also a fellow in the 2017 Critica National Workshop on Art and Cultural Criticism at the University of San Agustin, Iloilo City. In the following year, he presented his paper, Hexis and Histronics, Poetics, through the body in the devotion of the Santo Niño in Leyte during the 2018 International Federation on Theater Research Asia-wide Conference. His artistic and cultural practices have developed largely through his roles in events organized in by UP Tacloban. He produced the visual brands of, among other events, the 5th International Conference on Fisheries and Aquatic Sciences, and of Rayan Dayan, an exhibition of paintings and sculptures which he co-curated. In October 2020, he curated Kaagi Ha Ladawan, History in Image, an online photo exhibition of the Filipino-American War, which was part of the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Leyte Samar Heritage Center. He currently serves as the faculty in charge of UP Tacloban's Office of Continuing Education. Among his research interests are art history and theory, geopolitics, geopoetics, mythology, and cultural studies. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our curators in Region 8, Mr. Mars Edwinson Briones. Good morning, Mars.
Good morning, Sir Manny. Thank you for the introduction. Mupay nga aga, hatanan. So, from Region 8, I'm the curator in Leyte, and I'm working with two artists. They are RV Sanchez and Papa Mascual. So, for this morning session, I'm going to be talking to RV Sanchez first. So, I'd like to welcome him to the room, RV. Um, So RV Sanchez is a visual artist based in Cebu City. He earned a BFA in painting from the University of San Carlos and has participated in numerous group exhibitions and art festivals in the Philippines. Sanchez has experimented with a wide range of media, including painting, video installation, and performance, addressing various issues in contemporary society. Figure drawings, Sanchez's proposed work for Viva XCon 2020, takes its cues from key concepts in basic figure drawing, namely structure and gesture. Uh, the work aims to convey the imbalances between oneself and the world that create abject conditions of life. So, everybody, let's welcome RV Sanchez.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the introduction, Mars.
Hello, RV Mopangaga. Mayang buntag.
And buntag.
Right, so let's get right to the first question,
Okay.
which is what are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of concept, medium, and technique? And please show studies, sketches, drafts, or early phases of your work if available.
Okay. So I'm gonna go over the main concept of my project for Viva, as I have shared on the previous webinar, previous node. So my project is called Figure Drawings. Can go to the next slide, please. Uh, Next slide. All right, so my project is called Figure Drawings. The idea of the project began during the lockdown last year. Since I was stuck at home and unable to do outside work, I turned back to what I love doing most, which is drawing. And for me, drawing has always been therapeutic, more so during this lockdown. And I've realized that drawing offers me a gateway to a more peaceful and happy place. It became a meditative practice while exercising my creative muscles. So, while practicing drawing, I revisited some of the basics and came across these two ideas of art, and especially in drawing, which is structure and gesture. So, in figure drawing, the term structure refers to the individual parts of the body. Gesture, on the other hand, refers to how these parts relate to each other. And with these ideas in mind, I decided to create a personal project wherein I can practice my figure drawing skills and at the same time incorporate my interest in performative works. So, okay, next slide, please. So the proposed project takes its cues from the two essential ideas in figure drawing, which I've mentioned, which are structure and gesture. So the project will unfold incrementally in two phases. The first phase is called the structure. So can you go to the next slide, please? So the first phase is called structures. And these are photos of leftover of food packaging that I'm using as a base or a background to study figure and anatomy. So it's kind of like making these surfaces as a sketchbook for figure drawings. So the materials will include leftover foods, packaging, paper bags, and other found objects. And then for the drawings, I'll be using different kinds of pens and pencils to draw the figures. And I'll also be using digital software like Photoshop to enhance the drawings or the image. And then once I've gathered enough materials and drawings in the first phase, I'll be moving on to the next phase of my project, which is gesture. Next slide, please. So for the gesture phase, it's a participatory video performance which takes cues from a real life drawing class. So for its production, I will host a live video on Facebook. The nature of the performance resembles an actual live drawing class where I will act as the model and the audience as the students. I will gather the objects I collected on part one, the structure phase, and tape them all over my body, representing a disproportionate figure. Next slide. The audience watching remotely on their devices will be encouraged to participate by sketching or drawing the model, which is me, using any medium. The performance or class starts with me holding a pose for 5 minutes, and the audience will do rapid sketches of me. I will do 10 poses within the duration of the performance. And after each pose, I will shed some of the objects off my skin, gradually revealing parts of my naked body during the next poses. Next slide, please. So during the last pose, all the objects have been removed from my body, revealing my exact body proportion. By the end of the session, the participating audience will have several sketches of my body, from the most disproportionate to the more proportionate drawings. And for the final part, I will ask the participants to share and upload their works. The final output for this project will be a collection of figure drawings by the participants. So next slide, please. So that's my answer to question number one. Thank you, Mars.
Right. Thank you, RV. Now we'd also like to know about uh, the urgency of your work. Why do you think it is important or urgent to produce something like this at this time? If in the first question we talked about the matter of the work, this time we ask, why does your work matter? What is its significance in your practice and in the wider sphere beyond your practice?
All right. So the initial aim of this project is somewhat quite personal. It is intended to help me develop my figure drawing skills. But as the process evolved, I became more interested about making it more dynamic and participatory. With this project, I want to, as I said, I want to investigate my relationship with the information and the material world and the imbalances that create uh, abject living conditions. So well, the world is in chaos right now, but it's possible for the world to be harmonious. Unfortunately, most of the time, life doesn't work very well because we don't find that right balance. We give too much of you give too much of yourself to the world, and you feel miserable, or you are too self-centered and you have lost connection. And as a creative, I want to produce this project because I want to show people how the world is right now from my own perspective, and hopefully leading to a creative conversation. Next slide, please. So yes, a summary for my for this project. I'm fascinated with the idea that the concept of gesture and structure can be a reflection of the balancing act that we must achieve in our lives. Each of us has to connect and relate to the world. Um, thank you. That's it, Mars, for number two.
Right, thank you. By the way, I'd have to apologize for the background noises. I'm currently in a cafe because there's power outage in Tacloban. Thank you, RV. But anyway, for your last question, this is what we'd like to know. How do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? How can it reach the public and touch their lives through a particular experience of your work?
Okay. So my answer is quite short. So next slide, please. So many artists are adapting to the pandemic by switching physical art spaces with virtual ones. So for me, I'm gonna be using social media to share all my content in this project. So it's gonna be a mixture of photographs and live performances. And as for the second phase of this project, which is gesture, the audience are invited to become participants of the performance. They are asked to create their own drawings and to share their perspective on the balancing act we all have to perform to create a better world. So that's it, Mars. Thank you.
Thank you very much, RV. Uh, at this point, we'd also like to welcome the other artist from Leyte, and that's Popo Amascual. Popo Amascual is a BA Communication Arts graduate and instructor of the Division of Humanities in UP Tacloban. She holds an MA Theater Arts degree from UP Diliman, and she has participated in major productions of the Dulaang Universidad ng Pilipinas. She served as a member of the Emerging Interdisciplinary Research under the Cultural Performances team. Now, Amascual is engaged in the study and production of performances, and she also intends to explore the possibilities of applying concepts in dramaturgy to disaster risk reduction and calamity preparedness. For Viva XCon 2020, Amascual explores what she calls mediatized sonic performance. The project, which is entitled Hingalo, will consist of breathing and other found sounds to be narrativized in the context of the current COVID-19 pandemic. The resulting soundscapes will convey a sonic awareness of the virulent and co-constitutive relationships between the body and the world. So, everyone, let's welcome Popo Amascual. Hello, Popo. Good morning.
Hello. Yes, can you everyone hear me? Hi. Okay, so good morning everyone. Thank you Mars for the introduction. Let us now go to the slides. Can everyone see my slides? Okay.
Right.
Okay, so
So,
first
just like in
question.
RV's case, we'd like to ask you the same set of questions. First off, what are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of concept, medium, and technique? And if available, please show studies, sketches, drafts for the early phases of your work.
Okay, so Hingalo attempts to decontextualize the experience of sound and the making sense of sonic qualities in the soundscape of the COVID 19 pandemic. So, in terms of my concept, my surrogated sound performance involves much sonic elements. So, for the materials, I will be including or involving recorded sounds, embodied sounds, as I will be performing these sounds, manipulated sounds, as I will be tweaking their volume, their qualities, and in the process of doing all of this, the recording, the embodying, or the performing and the manipulating of sounds, I would like to retrieve the nature of sound as something that is devoid of character, I think. So I will be using sound, especially noise, as the main seasoning or the main component or content of my performance. Now, structure wise, since this is going to follow a narrative structure, I will be using the concept of the crescendo or the increasing sound, as hingalo will involve the same experience of someone breathing escalating towards the sounds produced of someone with respiratory conditions. So I'll be using sound semantics. So sound as a visualizer, you will imagine the qualities of the sound, what kind of a sound it is, and what is the source of that sound. Sound as a locator, that's it, where it's coming from, and the acoustics in the environment. Then sound as segregator, or sound with its social quality or social aspect, and sound as interrogator, as we begin to question how sound actually factors in on day-to-day transactions or everyday experiences. So next slide, please. Here are samples of the sounds that I will be interacting with or exploring in Hingalo. First one, please. So this is just the basic content. And then the next one, so those are breathing sounds. They're essentially respiratory sounds as the main component. Next one, thank you. No, this one.
Metro Manila at 7 iba pang lugar mananatili sa General Community Quarantine hanggang matapos ang taon. Sa kooperatiba, gusto rin daw bumili ng bakuna kontra COVID-19 ng AstraZeneca.
Okay, thank you. And then in the next slide, I will actually provide or show, provide a sneak peek of
First,
my
I'll have a
increment.
copy to
Could
this
we
one.
go to play at 252? Sorry, contextualize these European materials in a Filipino setting. And in the next slide, you will see screenshots of online articles posted about our research under EIDR. So I serve as a graduate assistant and as a writer, and we did, again, research on different cultural performances in selected communities in the Philippines. So this was one of the Pamagdarame in Okay, thank you. Pampanga. And okay, so for this increment, I actually want the recipient to pay attention to the sounds occurring in the presentation, describe the sounds that they will notice, and what sounds did they expect and do they expect in situations like a speech, lecture, or report, similar situations to that of the Kalibutan seminar node 2, which of course where this presentation is taking place. So as for the medium are sound storage applications or software. So the first aspect of my performance is the playlist of documented and performing sounds. So I'll be using a media player here. And soundscape of participants breathing, I will be using, that's in the next slide actually, sorry. I will be using SoundCloud for the soundscape. Okay. As for technique, next slide please. Doing hingalo as sound staging, a sonic performance of recording, stitching, presenting, and I will be setting down the sounds, studying the sounds, sending the sounds, storing the sounds, and salvaging the sounds, so to speak. Yeah, figurative aspect. So that's for the first question. Thank you. Mars?
Thank you, Popo. Next, we'd like to know, why do you think it is important or urgent to produce something like this at this time? And in the first question, we talked about the matter of the work. This time, we'd also like to know, why does your work matter? What is its significance in your practice and in the wider sphere beyond your practice?
Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? So, for me, hingalo is relevant because COVID-19 is real and it is scary. Aside from the most basic aspect of this performance, sound being an experience every day, uh, I think hingalo is relatable because cases are currently spiking and its pattern, the increase and the decrease in number of cases is erratic. So I think this mediatized sonic performance matters because it is an attempt at the urgency of experimentation, need for providing solutions, timeliness of problematizing issues, or simply the need for feeling, the need to worry, the need to sympathize, especially with people who are directly affected by this pandemic. So that's my answer to the second question. Thank you, Mars.
Thank you, Popo. Finally, I'd like to ask you, how do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? And how can it reach the public and touch their lives through a particular experience of your work?
Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Uh, in the next slide, you would you will actually notice that I have three sound samples. Let's play the first one. Okay, who's saying Bati, UP Tacloban. So it's the internet community radio of UP Tacloban, and Mars is a part of this. Sorry. So that's it for the second question.
Finally, Popo, we'd like to know how you decided on your project for Kalibutan. What was the process and method involved in your research and reflection?
Okay, thank you. And then the last one, please. No, I mean last sound bite. Okay, so with these three clips, sound clips, I intend to make Hingalo a sort of self-scan. That will be a chance to make people, especially participants, reflect on a lot of things that involve sound. So make us highlight sounds that occur around us, and make us think or look back on how sounds were much less spotlighted in a pre pandemic setting. So that's next slide, please. This is actually the image of the self scan, and then that's it. Thank you.
Damo salamat, Popo. So those are the artists I'm working with in Leyte. Thank you, RV, and thank you, Popo. Um, so now I'd like to
Thank you.
introduce to you the other curator from Region 8, Nomar Miano. So Nomar Bayog Miano has taught courses in philosophy and fine arts. He finished his undergraduate degree in fine arts and the course requirements for Master of Arts in Philosophy from the University of San Carlos, Cebu, Philippines. He is the former Supremo Andres USC, a social realist cultural organization, and founding chairperson of Regional Art Forum, which is an academe-based initiative that promotes contemporary art practices and art reception in the periphery. Miano has held solo exhibitions at the Finale Art File, Cultural Center of the Philippines, Alternative Contemporary Art Studio, and select galleries in Cebu. He has presented works in important art spaces abroad, such as the Hangara Museum in Seoul, South Korea, and C3 Contemporary Art Space in Melbourne, Australia, and participated in international art festivals and residencies, such as Ho Chang International Art Festival, Thailand, Yogyakarta Art Festival, Indonesia, and Taito Museum residency for Austronesian International Arts Award in Taiwan. So everybody, uh, let's welcome Nomar.
Thank you for that introduction, Mars. Good morning to everybody. Okay, let me introduce the first artist that I've chosen for this for the Viva Kalibutan exhibition. The artist is Creso John Vianney Paz, who is also known as Soika. Soika finished his fine arts degree at the University of San Carlos, and he practiced the formative years of his art in Cebu City. Soika has held a number of solo exhibitions in Cebu, Iloilo, and even in Belgium. He had attended residencies in Australia and Belgium, and exhibited in other parts of the world, not only locally but also internationally. Soika identifies as street artist, so his work for Viva Kalibutan is related to street art, but in a completely different sense. In that, he is now exploring the intramural dimension of street art. So, whereas street art is commonly seen as an engagement with notions of geography. His work for Viva Kalibutan, which he calls Panic Box, engages the interior, the chaotic interior of the artist's consciousness in a way that implicates the anarchy of visual and auditory mediations in real life. So let us welcome Soika from Leyte. Hello, Soika.
Hello, salamat sir sa introduction. Good morning sa tanan.
So let us
Nadungog ra ko.
let us go to the first question, sorry. Okay.
Okay.
So the first question, actually the same question addressed to the earlier artists. Okay. First question is, what are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of concept, medium, and technique?
I created a mindscape na nag-interpret sa aking mental situation during the times na active yung mental health issues ko. So next slide please. Like anxiety, depression, or overthinking. Through this, ginawan ko ng paraan kung paano ko malagyan ng bridge between me and the people here in my town during this pandemic. So I chose individuals na naka-experience ng hard lockdown from critical COVID areas, mostly galing Manila and Cebu. Gumawa ako ng isang interactive activity with them na ginanap inside the space that I created. Next slide please. So sa loob ng space, isinishare nila ang mga dinaranas nila during hard lockdown. And while they are sharing, ma-experience nila physically ang chaos inside my mind during active ang aking mental health issues. Through this, magkaka-intersect ang aming commonalities. So next slide please. Next. In my medium, I use thick plywood for the box. Next slide please. Sa interior niya, I put random objects and images. So next, merong red lights and disco light. So there's also a mini Bluetooth speaker for the audio at may dalawang butas. Yung isa ay para sa camera. Next. Next please. Yung isa naman ay entrance ng ulo. And by the way, mayroong video recording while nag-share yung mga participants. Next please. And the exterior of the panic box ay ginuhitan ko ng image ng Soika character na napapraning ang pagmumuka. Next please. Gamit ang stenciling technique via spray paint at nilagyan ko ng textures gamit ang epoxy. Next please. Na para bang nag-melt yung pagmumuka kasi praning na. At wag po kayong mag-alala, sinigurado ko yung mga participants na hindi kami ma-COVID. Pinili ko yung dumaan na ng quarantine at pinili ko talaga yung matagal na nag-quarantine. Yun. Tapos, after sa activity, wala namang na-COVID sa amin. And then yun. Sa technique naman, I wanna talk about my technique on how I achieve a chaotic ambience. Next, please. So yun, I played not only with the visuals like images and some non-moving objects. Next, please. But also, I combined with red lights and disco light to enhance the chaotic feels and an audio from my sound art experiments. That's for the first question. We can proceed to the second question. Wala. Siguro si Sir na wala.
Ah. Hi, Soika. Sorry. I think Mars lost its connection. Um, Maybe to ask the second question, why do you think it is important or urgent to produce something like this at this time? If in the first question we talk about the matter of the work, this time we ask, why does your work matter? What is its significance in your practice and in the wider beyond your practice?
Dahil sa panahon ngayon, dinidetach tayo sa ating usual routines at nakakapag-trigger ito ng mental struggles. Kaya kailangan natin ng support or means of communication during this time of pandemic para mabawasan ang feeling of isolation. I think mas mabuti kung i-apply natin ang isang activity na mayroong artistic approach. Kasi naniniwala din ako na kapag hindi usual na experiences, mas exciting ito at nakakatulong ito sa pag-divert ng ating isip. Ang work ko kasi is talking about mental health issues. Ginawan ko ng isang realm ang aking certain experiences during active yung mental struggles ko. And from this, I made a way in connecting people during this time of pandemic. Mayroon itong interactive happenings and I choose participants. Each of them is sharing their experiences in the middle of a hard lockdown. Nagre-remind din ang pyesa ko na ang mental struggles ay isang space na pwede kang makalabas. Gaya ngayon, nalampasan nila ang dinaranas nilang kahirapan nung nasa gitna sila ng hard lockdown. At ang mga experiences na yon ay naging bahagi na ng kahapon. And in these present times, nandito na sila sa tao namin, zero COVID cases, mas maluwag na protocols at mas malapit sa kanilang mga pamilya. That's for second question.
Siguro Soika, in behalf of Mars, I would like to ask also the third question. No? How do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? How can it reach the public and touch their lives through a particular experience of your work? I think na
So yun,
sa answer mo sa question number 2, you also mentioned about touching their lives, no? But maybe you can expand.
Oo. So yun, gaya ng sinabi ko dito sa tao namin, hindi siya ganun ka higpit kasi most of the time zero COVID cases yung tao namin eh. Kaya yung nag-conceptualize pa lang ako sa work ko for the Viva, hindi ako nahirapan na paano ko ito materialize kasi talagang maluwag talaga dito at saka nakakampante ako na safe naman yung interactive na happenings while doing it with the participants. And yun sa sinabi ko sa answer ko sa question number 2, naging yung activity namin naging reminder siya sa mga participants which are galing sila sa isang hard lockdown. Yung isa pa nga, 2 yata naging active sa COVID. Tapos yun, naging reminder ito na parang nilook back namin yung karanasan nila, dinaranas nila sa nung time na nasa critical area sila. Tapos parang sinabi ng parang may sinabi yung activity namin na part na yun lahat sa past, tapos nandito na tayo ngayon at yung mga dinaranas yung struggles nung time na yun ay wala na, part na ng memories. At yung ibang participants din ay parang naging intense yung emotions nila while having the activity. Yan na po. Salamat.
Okay, we can go to, was that the last question na answer? Sorry, or we can go to the last question na lang. Okay. How do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? How can it reach the public and touch their lives through the particular experience of your work?
Na-ask ko ng last question.
Okay.
Oo.
That was it.
Thank you.
So we will go now to. So thank you very much, Soy. We'll go to the next artist. The next artist is a Cebu-based group. So dagan salamat for that, Soy. Sorry for the interruption. So the Regional Forum is a network of visual artists, writers, community workers, scholars, and counter experts that cater to the needs of region-based art practices. The team members for this particular project of Regional Forum are Geraldine Ocampo, Santi Liano Perez, I.P. Mariapa, Donabel Edenilia, Eden Brillo, Tena Muscare, and Mika Limbo. I am joined here by I.B. Mariapa, and we will be joined by Tena Muscare from Samar to discuss about their project. So we will go ahead, we go straight to the first question. So for your group, what are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of the following: concept, medium, and technique? So can you tell us something about these points, Ms. Ivy?
Good morning. So our project, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so I'll be talking about the concept and medium of our project for Kalibutan. So next slide, please. So our project deals with modalities of geography. So there are 2 things here that we need to unpack. One is modalities and the other is geography. Raph's understanding of modalities with regard to art can be traced back to Robert Sower's discourse about primary and secondary modalities in art. So according to him, according to Sowers, the primary modalities are image modality, which he identifies to be primarily operative in painting, the object modality, which he identifies to be primary in sculptural works, and the environment modality, which he primarily associates with architectural works in general. So in a way, Sower's theory of modalities in art seeks to overcome the dogmatic prescriptions of formalist modernism. But his theory, Sowers limits his understanding of modalities in visual art in terms of the physicality of the work. So his theorization of environment modality, for instance, which he directly associates with architectural works, was promising, but it never went beyond the physical conception of space. And this is where our engagement with geography comes in. Diba, as the theorist Henry Lefebvre points out, space is socially produced and it's socially conceived. Hence, space is almost always right in and for contestation. So space is not reducible to a material extension, much like what Sowers would describe as environment modality. So space, as in the space of art, is ideological. Space is not neutral. Space is geographical. It embodies certain tensions that funnel structures of exclusions and inclusions. And as with any kind of space, the space that art engages is geographical. It engages the modalities that are not necessarily material or physical. Spaces are permeated with values that nationalities, ethnicities, religion, language, etc. insinuate. So, next slide, please. Of course, we also participate in this enterprise, diba? That is why we have Viva XCon. That is why we have our group, Regional Art Forum. So for us, art is an engagement with geographical spaces. And this is what we are saying, which is a basic revelation afforded to us by urban art, like street art in the 80s and 90s. But we do believe that we are pushing boundaries here because we now want to interrogate the notion of third world space, the space for subject peoples, the reality of underdevelopment, in other words. So for our group, for RAF, geography then is thick space. It involves the modalities of bioethics, the environment, or physicality of space, and the politics of space, of exclusions and inclusions.
Okay, we go ahead. We go to the next question, and then maybe Pena from Samar can answer and add more to what Ms. Ivy is saying. So our next question is, why do you think this particular project is important? Okay, in the first place, we talk about the matter of the work this time. So why does your work matter? Can you answer the question? Maybe Ms. Ivy, then Ms. Fena can say something about this after Ms. Ivy.
So, so let's start by saying that third world urbanization is a perverse development. So what is happening in the Philippines is rapid urbanization without industrialization. And this is a slope-sided development, which is actually a form of underdevelopment that continually favors the urban centers at the expense of the countryside. And a corollary to this kind of underdevelopment is gentrification, displacements, and of course, the slumification of areas within and around metropolitan centers. The underdevelopment encourages internal migration to urban centers where capital-infused industries in manufacturing and services are concentrated, sponsoring a parasitic relationship between centers and peripheries. So for RAF, we think that neoliberal globalization exacerbated the problems caused by early urban interventions in third world spaces by Western powers, particularly that of the United States. It produced underdevelopment and dependency. The problems that we are facing right now, what architects would recognize as features of urban decay, are actually results of these same problems with which Reaganomics in the 80s nearly extenuated. In fact, our inability to curb the rising number of those infected with COVID-19 is actually an offshoot of these problems, diba? Of urban congestion, slumification, and poor health infrastructure. So now this is made worse by demolitions and threats of demolitions poised against the urban poor in the cities in the midst of this pandemic. So in Cebu, for example, it's disheartening to know that while the city is being celebrated as UNESCO's design hub, there is a rise in demolitions of public space, like the carbon market, like the photos that you can see here, and informal residential areas. And this is no coincidence. The demolitions in Cebu is connected to such declaration. In fact, the demolition of self-help structures in the city is an ongoing project of the local government, which betrays the absence of a concrete and sustained program for urban poor housing. Diba? So this is how RAF interrogates geography. A certain notion of geography, the livable Cebu, is used to justify violations of human rights, and architects, designers, and somehow artists are complicit in the project, which is a project of cleansing the city, if you like, which stigmatizes the informal sectors.
Maybe we can go to Pena to maybe she can say something about this because her work is directly relates to this. Hello,
Maybe
Pena.
we can go to the previous slides.
Hi. Yes, so in addition to what Ivy shared, on our end, so we did want to make our actions relevant to the communities na we are serving. So, yung practice natin sa culture and the arts is also part of our development work. So it's necessary also to know, to process, and to respond the arising issues and concern that may hinder us as individuals and as community. So, yung project na ginawa namin, yung bakit siya urgent at relevant, sa ngayon, we need the spaces and the mechanisms for individuals and groups such as sectors of women and rural peasant workers to be able to express their views and insights and mutually learn, matuto din how are we going to cope with this current situations such as this pandemic and the arising economic and political crisis we are facing ngayon. So, yun. Thank you.
Because di ba, the Pena and Santi and then they are at the forefront of the fight against not only with this against this health crisis but also another health crisis, what we would call red tagging, which is also a kind of health crisis, di ba? Because it endangers the lives of activists and development workers, human rights workers like Pena and Santi, and they're facing this. The pictures a while ago are actually photos taken from Las Novas, from summer. And these are activities of red tagging sponsored by state agencies. So we now go to the next question, last question. So how would you imagine now the proposal to materialize in space? Considering that I understand that your project is partly critical of the art world, critical of the binal format. So how is it going to materialize now? So can you maybe Pena first can continue, then Miss Ivy can add something later. Sige. Hello, Miss Pena.
Hello, sorry. Yes. So interestingly, here sa countryside, sa rural areas of Samar, the restrictions are loose, so we can actually meet up face to face with observing minimum health protocols. So we've captured the conversation pieces in video to be able to share it online or through public viewing platforms. So our participants naman are those yung mga unheard of. So not mainstream. Our dialect even is mostly not widely used in our areas, in the Visayas or nationwide. So, pero yung mga insights, the sharing of the participants is something that we can relate on. It is relatable to any audience na makakakita or makakapanood or makakarinig ng conversation pieces. Sorry, I don't hear anybody.
Okay, thank you for that, Kenna. Maybe Miss Ivy can talk more about the materiality of the work. Okay.
Right. So there's nothing new with collaborative and community engaged art projects. And we know that already, alam natin yan. So, however, we do notice a problem with recent community-based engagements by art collectives and cultural groups. It seems that recent community engaged works have become extensions of governmentality. Thus, the seasoned commentator in contemporary art, Hal Foster, states that governmentality remains to be a pressing issue in contemporary art practice today. And Raf wishes to interrogate this as well. But first, we need to qualify what we mean by governmentality. So, governmentality does not necessarily mean government interventions in the cultural and artistic lives of its citizens. No. So rather, it's a certain form of rationality that permeates how civil society or communities, as in art communities, operate in the public sphere. So governmentality turns collaboration in art into a collaboration with power, which circumscribes the emancipatory promise of art practice. So we are seeing this happen now, even in regional spaces, diba? And this understanding is of course related to panopticism, whereby art practice has become an echo chamber of the reproduction of the subjects of power. So think of recent denominations in collaborative art. For instance, of artistic eco-activism, diba? So active when it comes to environmental issues, but quiet when it comes to the displacement and killings of peasants and lumad. So think of urban design or architectural practice in Cebu, for example, that helps maintain operative exclusions in city spaces. So Raf thinks that power works when it is able to efficiently co-opt its subjects or civil society into a collaborative stance that preserves the order of things. So recent collaborative art practices, it turns out, has become precisely such, diba? A collaboration that reproduces the operative exclusions in third world space. So the operation of power is collaborative. And this was the point of Michel Foucault, diba? In art, unfortunately, the Biennale exemplifies this kind of collaboration, a collaboration that reproduces the present ecology of exclusions. That's why we are asking ourselves this question: is exhibition necessary to the kind of work that we are doing? So where do we locate aesthetics or aesthesis or the emancipatory dimension of collaboration here? So can we go to the next slide? So our realization is this. We think that the field work, the conversations on the ground already did that. So the emancipatory dimension in collaborative practice occurs in the sustained, not merely durational engagement that developmental and cultural workers perform in regional spaces. So the practices of Santi, Eden, and Fena, diha siya mahitabo ang emancipatory dimension sa project. So it's not found in the exhibitionary tactics and interventions of the Biennale or Art Festival. So instead of exhibition, what then is the alternative, diba? So we think that the exhibition is merely an extension of community engagement. We think that it's not necessary to the work because we think that emancipatory production or emancipation happens or occurs in the ground, not in the exhibition space. So that's how Raf sees this project for Kalibutan for Viva 2021.
Okay, that is something that we need to think about. And maybe as a curator, need to negotiate on that as to the outcome of the project. Okay, thank you very much for the things that you said, the clarifications, and also the revelations. Okay, we will go now to the next curator. I will introduce to you the next curator. Okay. The next curator to present his own selection of artists is Mr. Libby Limoso. Libby is interested in local language, place, identity, memory, and spirituality, and also local mythology and things like that. He finished his Bachelor of Fine Arts, UP Diliman, and was a recipient of the Dominador Castañeda Best Thesis Award. And he also graduated from University of Pennsylvania School of Design. And then he has a master's degree in fine arts as a Ford Foundation International Fellow. His teaching experience includes UP College of Fine Arts in Diliman and Central Philippine University. And in fact, he was the head of the University of San Agustin, Iloilo, their fine arts program from 2014 to 2017. So let us welcome Mr. Libby Limoso.
Hi, good morning. Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Our first, thank you very much, everyone, and Mars, thank you very much. Our first artist for the projects is Ron Espinosa, Farida Caballo, and T.M. Malones. Ron Espinosa is Farida Caballo and T.M. Malones are artists from the province and city of Iloilo with backgrounds and interests in performance, sound, and moving images. The trio is working together for the first time for Viva XCon, and we will be working on Tangible Heritage Project. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome, in behalf of the team, Ron Espinosa. Good morning, Ron.
Hi, Sir Lib. Maayong aga. Maayong good morning, everyone.
Okay, your first question is, what are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of the following: concept, medium, and technique?
Our team's concept for this project will focus on the tangible heritage of Western Visayas, built structures as, shelters or repositories of good or bad memories. The team will be exploring on the conversation of preservation and restoration of built heritage, such as industrial, commercial, and residential structures, as an index of wealth, influence, ideals of place and its people. We realize as a number of existing materials that further articulate the very things that shape such matter: oral history, sound, music, text, and performance are interesting, intangible elements that would bring memory of these places and spaces come alive. For the medium, Sir Libs, we considered timeliness and accessibility as a significant factor for our work. Medium for this project will be articulated through digital documentary. It will capture vignettes of Western Visayas' tangible heritage. For the technique, the team's collaboration will tackle on sensitive, neglected, and pressing matters surrounding built heritage, particularly cultural imperialism for contemporary cultures, as well as historical colonialism in the region. This also resonates with our curator's desire for conversation on justice and equity in our place. We wish that the work in progress will also uncover the appropriate manner in carrying out our message to the audience.
Okay, thank you. Your question number 2 is, why do you think it is important or urgent for you to produce something like this at this time? if in the first question we talk about matter of the work, this time we ask, why does your work matter? What is its significance in your practice and in the wider beyond your practice?
In this difficult time, we want to create work that connects and makes an impact even to the disinterested individual who ask nga amuni aton kalibutan kag nga amuning nga katabo sa aton kalibutan. The continuous concern and urgency over the significance of the preservation of heritage sites, that visually and tangibly articulate a place's rich cultural past, will remain a major issue. There is a race against time as threats of decay and demolition continue to wait in the wings, while efforts have been made for preservation and restoration. There is a need to deepen and look beyond our limited understanding of preserving and restoring. Well, we always ask, why are we doing this? For whom are we doing this? Is it simply for beautification purposes? What can the people of a place benefit from this? Our work matters for the reason that it attempts to orient or reorient the public on various significant perspectives that affects our being as individuals or as a community. As practitioners from different fields, this project opens an opportunity for us to connect and thrive. While the need for development and change is inevitable, remnants of the past must be preserved, seen, and experienced. As long as it is possible, in order for the future generation to know how they came to be. There must be an attempt to fill and bridge the gaps between the past, the present, and the future. The preservation and restoration of built heritage through acts of remembering in the form of narrative, sound, image, music, text, performance will demonstrate the team's practices in visualizing and articulating the intangible. It is with the hope that the collaboration will and the merging of these practices will produce never-ending curiosities, interdisciplinary exploration, and progressive, meaningful conversations that will highlight the significant roles of built heritage, preserving and promoting national identity, and also nation building. So that's it's for the question number 2.
Okay, your last question is, how do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? How can it reach the public and touch their lives through a particular experience of your work?
In the initial planning of the project, we took into consideration the limitations brought about by the pandemic, the safety of everyone involved in this project, of course, the budget, the project's feasibility, and minimizing face-to-face contact will be highly prioritized. In addition, the team also felt that in spite of restrictions, our medium of choice will be able to capture many facets of and forms of the acts of remembering. Thus, the group has decided to do a digital documentary on building heritage, industrial, commercial, residential structures. Special consideration on the narrative also of Hacienda Faraon in Negros Occidental. A documentary is an ideal medium for the project as it can be accessed by people easily accessed by the people through social media platforms. If produced and preserved, the film can be passed on to the future generation with the hope that the work can generate questions or inspire to look into their own personal histories, also making their own acts of remembering, thus making intangible tangible. Sir Libs, I think nakamute your
Oh, yeah.
audio.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much. Thank you very much for for your reply, and thank you for showing these slides of different built structures of industrial, commercial, and residential built structures. Thank you very much, Ron and the team.
Thank you. Salamat.
We will now proceed with the next artist, AR Sculptura, who will be working on the intangible heritage together with ICANN. Yes, I would like to introduce you AR Sculptura. Is a design team, and the firm is based in Haro, Iloilo City. They're composed of Joseph, Carl Albert Tampega, and Margaret Albacete. So both of them are licensed. One is an interior designer, and the two have studied architecture from University of San Agustin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AR Sculptura.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, Sir Libby.
And Margaret. So let's now proceed with the first question. What are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of concept, medium, and technique?
Okay, so our concept actually portrays the Sugidanan world in a retablo-like setup, which will invoke both familiarity and contrast to the viewers. Okay, associated to Catholic churches of Spanish influence, the installation, which is the retablo, would automatically spark familiarity to the viewers, and thus showcasing the pre-Hispanic Visayan culture through its characters, their attire, the environment, and other details, which would create a lasting impact because it do make a contrast with the whole composition. So it was believed that our ancestors were believers of animism, and they worship anitos. So these are represented by the carved idols. I think the previous slides, sir. Okay, so we envision our output to be a micro-scale modeling of the Sugidanan world. However, with the 10 epics to date, we have so much to explore with our fertile imagination. So this, we hope, will be an ongoing initiative. So like the very experience of Sugidanon, the miniature will develop as we continue to explore, next slide, and understand the Sugidanon world. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have here the 10 epics, so we have so much to explore. And next slide, please. And so this one would invoke contrast despite the familiarity of the retablo. So we also have contrast because our characters would be somehow from the pre-Hispanic times. Okay, that is why we hope to continue this proposal even after hopefully the Viva XCon 2020 culminates, in as much as space and time would allow us. Okay, for that is for the concept.
Okay, please proceed with the slides.
Okay, for the medium. Okay, so that's it for the miniature. So that is how we envision an organic or abstract world of the Sugidanon would be. So this is an example of a miniature. It's a small scale world. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so hopefully this actually this is Disneyland. So and we hope that our proposal later would be an important reference or inspiration, so that maybe we could have our own version later of our own Sugidanon amusement park, hopefully. Okay, that's it. So for the medium, do I proceed with the medium?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so for the medium, next slide, please. Okay, so the medium, if it's in terms of materials used, it would most likely revolve within the context of our practice. Therefore, resin, which is at present the most workable material for most of our sculptural works, would be the primary medium for anatomical figures or the dolls. whereas retablo type enclosures can be fabricated using acrylic sheets as an alternative to glass, which is fragile, heavy, and rigid. So as we have mentioned previously, we hope to utilize also our construction waste materials, or what we call the retaso. So next slide, please. Which ranges from plywoods, lumbers, steel pipes, bars, some excess paints, and the like. So we could easily cut, shred, and attach these objects to each other to create an upcycled and useful outputs using our power tools and machines that we normally use daily in our construction sites. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of our bodega. So we have a lot of retaso actually that we can utilize. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we have power tools to convert them to something more useful, our retaso. So we hope that this will be an assembly of multiple composite materials to create a series of compositions that would resemble bits and pieces representing realms of the Sugidanan world. Next slide, please. Okay, so now for the technique. Next slide, please. So the final output is envisioned to be a product of multiple phases related to the design process in architecture. So we use that and in planning also, because it is what we practice. So our general technique follows a common cycle of goal setting. In goal setting, of course, as far as I can remember, our first meeting with the Sir Libby, so we discussed how we set our goals first, and we do discuss some vague concepts. So that's goal setting, like we established our objectives first. And then next is data gathering. That is already, that is when we did research works. So we consulted a few people, most especially one of the authors of the books, Dr. Magos. That is part of the data gathering. And of course, some Google, so internet. Okay, so now we are into proposal making. So proposal making is, of course, we did already the sketches, and little by little we are trying to create forms already for the final output. And after proposal making, that would not be the final thing yet, because it should be evaluated, and the best people to evaluate this is the community itself, the Panay Bukidnon. So we will be consulting them for what we have been proposing. And lastly, after some corrections will be have been done, so that's the time that we can have our final proposal already. So that is our technique. In a more technical perspective, like in terms of proposal making, which includes already the creating of the characters and the environment design, our work would take its evolution through continuous layering of basic shapes and gradually incorporate more complex shapes, and then layering textures after, and organic patterns, using, of course, the tubok, which is a heritage needlework of the Panay Bukidnon. Okay, next slide. And talibong, or the ancient blades, primarily designed for combat, but it is also a multi-purpose tool for hunting and farming. These are the main design references. So next slide, please. Similarly, for anatomical figures, which we usually do, we first start, we also do the layering technique. So it will be applied wherein our usual procedure starts with the assemblage of the skeletal system using steel components, muscles, and flesh formed by casting resin and its composite materials. And lastly, there are tire and other accessories to be assembled as a last layer. So it can either be in fabric or other types of flexible material, in which we are right now not yet very sure what to really to use in the latter part. Okay, so that's it for the first question, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's exciting. I wanted to see how these materials transform into those Sugidanon figures in a matter of few months. And number two question is, why do you think it is important or urgent to produce something like this at this time? If in the first question we talked about the matter of the work, this time we ask, why does your work matter? What is its significance in your practice and the wider beyond your practice?
So in terms of the urgency is actually next slide, due to the fact that this advocacy focuses on the oral tradition, which we all know that it might possibly be lost and forgotten because it's oral tradition. So epics, as one of the sources of our cultural knowledge and our heritage, are essential to our community, to our shared identity and experience as Visayans. So right now, it's very timely because we have heard of red tagging. So also similar with the Lumads, the killings, cases of displacing locals due to industrial interventions. So I think these are just a few factors which will eventually cause the fading of our rich pre-colonial culture. So it's really high time that we have to appreciate them more and show the world their value. So our work matters because sculptural and architectural elements have really the capacity to capture a moment and shelter memories. It can endure time, and therefore working with and for the spirit, we inspire and enliven cultural identity and character. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are a few samples of architectural and urban spaces that we all enjoy, and these are all very influential to the people who are using these spaces. So it is a promising and sustainable medium, the art and architecture, to widely promote almost anything. Consequently, our proposal is a testament of what art and architecture can do in the wider beyond. In a way, it can inspire future projects which can be incorporated into public spaces that become part of our daily lives. So this is our own work, and we hope that in a way, we can also create an impact to the passersby. I hope it gives them a good mood also. And that's it for the second question, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I think your reply for this is also like what the group from Samar are describing. Like there's I think they have better answers knowing all the intricacies of the politics about this colonialism and related matters. So for that question is, how do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? How can it reach the public and touch their lives through a particular experience of your work?
Okay, so our proposal, which actually aims to convert the intangible to tangible, is best experienced in its physical form, supposedly. Okay, but these days with the pandemic, the physical exhibition can be mounted in any private space. So I'm thinking it can be in any space, can be in our own personal space, or it can be somewhere within the locality. The installation, for the sake of documentation and for uploading maybe to social media, it can be documented using time-lapse video, so showing the step-by-step creation of our perceived Sugidanon world, in a miniature form, of course. This can be uploaded every 15 days or 15 to 21 days to show the work in progress. So while the physical exhibition is yet regulated and limited. Lightweight parts would allow the installation to be portable, most especially the dolls, which we hope to distribute to as many collectors as action figures as later, as possible. That can be with or without its dollhouse or retablo. Next slide, please. So we have here some sketches of very random sketches of some characters of the Sugidanon world, which we hope that maybe they can become some collectibles later. If of course Sugidanon story can gain worldwide appreciation. So that is so these can be distributed later with or without their dollhouse retablo. Next slide, please. So a few sketches, just sketches, Leoncina. And next slide, please. Okay, so Malitong Yawa. And next slide, Labaw Dunggon. Next slide, please. We have our own version of Amburukay. These were actually drawn by Bert. It's not talking. So this is our Bagsang, the scene where they fought the seven-headed snake. And this one are we envisioned the topmost layer, or the urugan, as something like the characteristic of the environment and their house. By the way, the house was inspired from the traditional Datu house of the Datu. So on the upper layer, so we envision it like flowy, fluffy. So it's like more like cloud-like. So next slide, please. And for the middle, or the pagtungan, so it's more like here on Earth. So it's the usual form, but with intricate details, of course, that based from the tubok patterns and the traditional blades. Next slide. We have this would be this is how it would look like for the limawandal, or figures with their house. So maybe they can be inside caves with stalactites, so the environment would be a little moist. So they vary in actual, they would really vary in texture, and the features would really be distinguished from each other. Okay, next slide, please. So okay, so in this way, it counters massive pop culture and colonial consumerism from other countries. So purchasing our own Sugidanon doll is either a result of curiosity or an obsession of a Sugidanon story, or for specific characters. Since storytelling is an essential childhood activity, attachment to the doll and intimate relationship will develop, and from that, a deep appreciation of Sugidanon stories, its characters, and the Sugidanon world will transpire. As a result, it will touch lives and promote the Visayan culture, not just to the child, but to grown-ups as well, who might eventually become collectors of Sugidanon action figures. Hopefully, this miniature scale world and characters can spark an initiative and will become a reference for our own version of Disneyland, wherein a Sugidanon amusement park may be established as a local attraction that will gain worldwide recognition. So that's it, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's getting exciting. The at the beginning of the unfolding and the next 15 or 21 days, and of course, watch out for the months of June to July. Right now, we are finalizing a venue here in Iloilo City, and yeah, we will just keep you updated, because it's also an exciting space, a new space in the city, and it's an influential space that's also will keep us excited to watch out. So thank you very much, AR.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Our next group is the group of ICANN from Rojas City.
Hello.
Yes, it is led by Maru, and we have been discussing their ideas with the last node. And are you ready, Maru, for the first question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So your first question is, what are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of concept, medium, and technique?
So for the concept, for the Kalibutan project, ICANN together with AR Sculptura is working collaboratively on intangible heritage, which includes the language, which is Kinaraya, the place, which is Panay and Western Visayas, identity, memory, and spirituality of the Visayan people from Panay Island through the Sugidanon, which is the surviving oral tradition of the Panay Bukidnon. In this project, ICANN will focus more on the characters while AR Sculptura will be in the study of the environment in which both are part of their Kalibutan. Through our continuing curiosity and interest, we are hoping to discover and know more characters in the epic. We are hoping to transform these intangible elements to be tangible through our works. For the medium, next slide. We have two mediums. First, we have digital illustrations. For the digital illustrations and imaging, as digital natives, we are used in using graphic pen tablet on Photoshop in doing our sketches, initial and final illustrations, in which it will be easy for us to manipulate in different purposes in the future. Second, for the cosplay, usage of various materials. Next slide, please. So here are some of our few sketches. La Uncina character study. Labaw Dungon in his teenage age. Ang Madapnon. Next. Matanayon, considering the different poses. And for the medium of cosplay, we use various materials such as cloth to include patadjong, cardboards, wood, rubber, and for the coloring, we will be using paints or spray paints, and etc. So for the techniques, the process of character and costume design. First, we're gonna have consultations with the Sugidanon chanters, especially for the validity. Second, we're gonna learn about the Sugidanon Kalibutan characters and environments. Next, drawing traditional attire of Panay Bukidnon, men and women. Documentation of designs and patterns from surviving Panay Bukidnon, clothing, and weaponry as a source of our reference. Character and environment analysis. And lastly, character design and costume design, in which we will be spending most of our time. So next slide. Here is just an example of our photo, like character consultation with Sir Capallero and Miss Rosario ang Panubli Museum last 2014. Next slide. So here is our own sketch of the female traditional attire, in which there is variations on how they wear their lower part. Next slide. Here is for the male, including their accessories and talibong. Next slide. So here are the patterns and designs we based on the panubok of Panay Bukidnon. Next slide. So it's just some of the few, the most common and identified. Maybe some of you are familiar to them if you see the Panay Bukidnon attire. Actually, they base their patterns on their environment, like the animals, the plants, nature. Next slide. Also, we did some talibong study in which we consider the different styles of the talibong in the Panay Island, in which it differs depending on the blade, handle, and case. Number 2.
Second question is, what do you think? Why do you think it is important or urgent to produce something like this at this time? And if in the first question we talk about the matter of the work, this time we ask, why does your work matter? What is its significance in your practice and in the wider beyond your practice?
Okay, so the next slide. We are much aware that the culture and tradition of the Panay Bukidnon is endangered. To be specific, we are the urbanization, the fast-paced economic development, political issues, and so on. It was mentioned also by AR Sculptura on their report. So we believe that through this project, we can help preserve and protect by giving emphasis on their oral traditions, which includes the language, place, identity, memory, and spirituality, in which also we can show value and appreciation to them. The Panay Bukidnon matters to us, considering the issues from pandemic, and security threats are a great concern. Next slide. So this project enables us to innovate and to take the advantage as digital natives to use the pop culture trend of gaming and cosplay, in which I am very aware na everyone is familiar with it. So to share the Panay Bukidnon epic to others through this um, form, I can further continue its practice in character development and cosplaying through this project in which we use art for the benefit of culture and its community. So this is one of the famous online games now which are common to our youth, the League of Legends. And on the right side, it is also used in cosplaying. Third question, Sir Lee.
Thank you for your reply. The last question is, how do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? How can it reach the public and touch their lives through a particular experience of your work?
Next slide. Okay, so with the present continuous rise of COVID cases in our country, including the Visayas, we plan of using the social media platform as our venue of exhibit, such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and websites, which are those accessible to the majority, in which it can reach the public through online, by showing to them the kalibutan of the epics of the Panay Sugidanon through our digital illustrations and cosplay performances. We will be having our scheduled postings online, slowly unfolding the characters one by one and their world to the public. Illustrations will be posted online, while in cosplaying, we will be having a face-to-face activity with the cosplayers in photo shoot and video shoot before posting it online, but with observance in the minimum health protocols. Hoping that this will bring about, next slide, is there another slide? There is an example of our last year's event, the Guso Tigbaliw, in which we posted our sketches and description of our characters. And then on the right side, the submission of our participants who joined our cosplay transformation contest. So hoping that this will bring about curiosity, excitement, and interest, a sense of pride, identity, and of value to the viewers, especially to the people of Panay and Western Visayas, and in a much larger scale, the whole world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, AR Sculptura. ICANN, I mean. And we will now proceed with another curator from Negros Occidental. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you Guinevere Sena. She's a graduate of Fine Arts from La Consolacion Bacolod in 2009. And she is Gwen ventured in practicing art with communities through residency grants, both local and abroad. Her multidisciplinary practice in art brings about a holistic merge of installation and painting to her exhibitions, curiously presenting the in-betweens, interconnections, and the possibilities we can all find around us. Hi, Gwen. Welcome. Hello. Gwen, are you there? Hello. Hi, Gwen. Okay. While waiting for Gwen, hello. Gwen, are you there? She's not yet around. Hello, Gwen. Can we call on the first? Yeah, would like to introduce you the first artist from Negros Occidental, Danley Chavez. Dela Chavez focuses on the extended range of stories through writing, acting, and filmmaking. She took up Bachelor of Arts in major in communication in the University of St. Lasal, Bacolod City. Her creations have been screened in film festivals locally and overseas, including Cine Cahirop, Cine Negrense, Negros Island Film Festival, 28 Kawad CCP para sa alternatibong pelikula at video, and the Josiah Media Festival in San Antonio, Texas. Hi, Denley, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay, in behalf of Gwen. Okay,
Good
Gwen is there right now.
noon.
Hello. Okay, go. Go, Gwen.
So for the first question, hi Denley. Good morning.
Hi, Miss Gwen.
Okay. So for our first question then, what are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of the following? Concept, medium, and technique. And can you please show studies or the early phases of the work if they are available?
Okay. Okay, Miss Gwen. So basically, the title of what I'm making is Pagbutwa Halin sa Kaidalman. My medium is basically an art film, which is all about female rebellion, which is a deconstruction of the legend of Siete Pecados. So what we see here on the slide is my storyboard, a part of my storyboard, and a shooting setup proposal. And this is what I chose from all the pages of the storyboard because I think this is what shows the themes good ka film and the story. It's about confinement and breaking free from confinement. And then in the shooting setup proposal, basically we have a lot of green screen involved and CGI on how uh, to do the underwater effect. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Ay. Okay. So these are artworks that I've gotten like inspirations from, and also some are direct references in the film. So yeah, next slide, please. Oh, before we move to that, I think we missed the slide. But I've also gotten research from different topics, such as women and gender relations in the Philippines, how Filipina looks at herself. I went through studies on folklore, their origins, so its societal impact, even on sin, and yeah, and I think the most like important one that pushes the narrative of the film forward is the seven necessary sins for women, which is by Mona Altaway. It's raising resistance and one woman's playbook for overthrowing the patriarchy. So yeah, on this slide is basically for my second for the second question. Next slide, please.
Okay, so is this for the second one?
Yes.
Okay, so for those who are listening and or missed the question previously, the second question goes like this. The Miss Universe. Why do you think it is important or urgent to produce something like this at this time? If in the first question we talked about the matter of the work, this time we ask, why does your work matter? What is the significance of your practice in the wider, like beyond your practice also? What is its significance during this time?
Okay. So basically, aside from the fact that a lot of themes in the film is based off of observance, like observe with events that I've seen during the pandemic. Also, it is an exposition on rebellion and like a culture of condemnation. And this is where I wanted to show this essay. We must keep our humanity in the time of coronavirus. We can fight the monster without becoming one and achieve a finer balance of freedom and security for all. Freedom is a sine qua non of human creativity, thinking, relations, and production. Balancing freedom and security is also essential for an effective fight against natural and human-made disasters. Since again, the theme is about confinement and breaking free from it. So next slide, please. Another essay. COVID-19, quarantine life and lessons for humanity. During this chaos, we then realize the weight of humanity, the implications of our actions, and how we are all connected. Um, we hear we hear the shouts of refugees louder. We empathize with those who have been uprooted from their home and forced to flee. We understand their pain and suffering because we know how it feels. So this film gives us an understanding that rebellion happens for a reason, and I think it's so important, especially now, that any form of rebellion, there's like a may counteract bala like with
Yes,
like
yes.
socially and politically.
And
Exactly. Like
people tend to fear it, and they think that it is about violence most of the time. But what can you say about that? Like the wrong impression of trying to fight for certain things like the movement, the feminist movement, how people or the society tends to shy away from it because yeah, that I don't want to be involved in trouble, or this misconception. Does your film tackle about this?
yes, absolutely. I think absolutely on like there is a reason for that movement, and there wouldn't be a movement in the first place if there wasn't like a flaw in our society. That's why in the last parts of the film there's something called a rebirth. We're putting everyone on equal ground, because like I think it's not only on like feminist movements. I think it's everything. Like it's you have Black Lives Matter, you have all these other things like and you start to question why the aggression, why the rebellion, quote unquote. And I think it's really just because it's a system of laws. It's a system of like piled up. Yeah. So, that's why I think this film really encourages like on with all that aggression. So yeah.
Very good. Is it? Is there any more slides for question number 2?
I think that's it.
Let's proceed with question number 3. How do you imagine your proposal to materialize in space during a pandemic? How can it reach the public and touch their lives through a particular experience of your work?
So basically, before I move on to this slide, I was thinking of putting it on social, either through social media, like a private screening, or I would want, because like for me, I would rather have it like physical, pero it's controlled physical, example through reservations, because I feel like the film barely has any dialogue actually, because I feel like it's more of like a visual experience. Like the thematics of it, like being drowned and coming off of the water. So I think it's much better if physical siya. And so yeah, I was thinking of either like tapping Safe House or Cinematheque. And then I'm gonna like have the audience like controlled. Like we could have reservations online, have a limited like seating. So yeah, I feel like it can be more like experienced that way.
I think they allow it. I think they allow 30% capacity during this time, no? Or did they change it again?
I've had a talk with someone from Cinematheque, and that is something that they are considering, because I think that's already something that they want to push through with, especially with June or July. So
Okay. Do you have, do you want to close it? How do you want to close this talk? Would you like to give like a conclusion to all your work so far and share it with the audience?
okay. So basically, we have just finished shooting, and right now we're on post production, and it's going to be a very long process since it's very CGI heavy and VFX heavy because of all the thematics of the film. But yeah, I think that's it. Like, I'm really excited to show this and show everyone's hard work as again a collaborative effort. And I'm excited as to how the audience will perceive the film because I feel like it can be, I think it's very upfront the message of it, but I think it can also be interpreted in many other ways. Like it's a talk on not just again female rebellion, but on humanity in general, how different things affect different people and everything, justice and an individual struggle, and how it should be kind of like a guidance and a learning lesson once we come out of this pandemic. Like how will we treat our like fellow human that's right in front of us or next to us? So
Okay.
yeah.
Very well said. And for those who are not aware, Denley, aside from being a writer, filmmaker, and actress herself, she also spearheads She Her I Project, an initiative which aims to mitigate effects of violence against women in Bacolod. And we're all very excited for her film, Denley. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you, Ms. Gwen.
Thank you. And now we will proceed with our next artist who represents Region 6 Negros Occidental, none other than Galicano Perry Argel, known as Perry Argel here, or Tito Perry. So let me read a partial of his bio. Perry Argel makes obsolete the very thought of obsolete. He describes himself as a functioning organism, clearing and fixing the space around him to reveal the purity of nature. In every assemblage, Argel presents different specimens linked to society's overall concept of what is and is no longer useful. His exhibitions include Anything in Berlin, Business of Fools, and The Ritual of Daily Living. Next slide, please. Perry Argel, according to him, it's not so much about defining, it's about caring. And to him, he goes to different places, not so much to travel, but to share ideas and let others transcend from being viewers into creatives themselves. Next slide, please. Good morning to Perry. Good morning, Perry. Is there still a power outage in your place? Brownout pa rin?
Nakadata lang ko.
Nakadata ka lang? Okay. Okay, so for the first question, these are actually things that has been tackled previously, but I will repeat the question. What are the materials involved in your project for Kalibutan in terms of the following: concept, medium, and technique? So let me just read the concept for those who have not attended the previous talk. Ilistaran, or dwelling place, illustrates an artist's house as an intertwined idea of form and space. The artist's abode is intricately built with found objects that have been collected over decades of mindful travels and natural encounters. Ilistaran attempts to emphasize the direct, causal connecting principle of Argel's creativism with nature. It probes into the reciprocity of how he lives, where he lives, examining the artist's house, including all the elements within it, as one inseparable form of art, a synthesis of being and doing. So Perry, can you share a little bit more about this time about the materials, the medium and the technique you use?
Okay, then thank you. So when working on my thesis, which mostly are basically found objects I encountered and collected along my wanderings in whatever time and space. I usually start with a certain object as an eye-opener. It may be a color, shape, or texture that attracts a sense within the process of my here and now, and the exact completion I cannot define. It may take a few days or many years for one artwork to be considered done. The point here is the work speaks of the concept rather than me talking about it or me trying to define or explain it. So next.
For the next slide pa. Next pa is, so we will just show other works by Terrier Hell. So this is an example of his works on paper. So just to show you that whether they be drawings, paintings, sculptures, an installation or functional objects or an instrument, our health spontaneity is the established common denominator of everything. Next slide. These are other examples. Aritoperio. So you can see here, he can make sculptures and 2D work. Can you share with us how you made these works, Toperio?
Yeah, I start with empty thoughts on empty canvas on boards. I just stain with paints or scribble with pens until images and imaginary forms become visions of whatever story it goes. So that's like in the flat boards or canvas. I first stain the board or the canvas and find and until I can find images that I can develop. So that's it. Like also in the three-dimensional, I always start with picking one object in time, space, and while exploring it more, I can, whatever attracts me and it fits to another object, then it goes and goes until it I'm develop more and more now. So that's it.
Okay, next slide. So how your thought process and how everything seems to be free flowing is really evident in all your work. And next slide. Basically, you can see how with the technique of ritual of daily living, like how a thought develops in a way, it's rooted from the playfulness and spirituality of Perrier Health's ritual of daily living philosophy. Our health art practice remains in a constant flux, ever evolving. How things start matter more than how they will become. What they are now is a testament of where they have come from, changed only through perception. Their material components are unhindered. So, before ginahambal ni Perry, he can see a doll na para siya beautiful pa na siya. And but to others, they already threw it away. They considered it trash. But to him, how he perceives it changes it. Next slide, please. Okay. So his thought practice mainly initiates what he will be creating. So this is an example of his house and a sketch side by side. Next slide. And another one. Encountering, interacting, defining actual forms of being. Can you talk us through this? Can you talk us through this, Perry, about like the making of your house and how you continually develop it? How you mentioned before that nothing is final. You still tend to touch and move things around.
Yeah, everything goes like sometimes it changes now, like the forms, the object inside, it changes. And I like to play with corners that can create a different mood. And sometimes I can find another object that can integrate to another space, and then the space will change differently again. No? So I'm enjoying doing like this. No? And not only the 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 space, but the accessory of every space. No, so that's it.
Let's proceed with question number 2. Why do you think it is important or urgent to produce something like this at this time? If in the first question we talked about the matter of the work, this time we ask, why does your work matter? What is the significance of your practice? And then in this time, and in the wider, beyond your practice, what is its significance?
I think it is important at this time that we have a center for collaborative form of ideas and a developing work structure as one body. It is easy to attain what we intend to communicate.
Next slide, please. So for Terry Arhel, in a concept, you can see that to his work, time is not a constant, it is a variable. We can never see time as a form, we can only see its effect to us in the world around us. In terms of consciousness, space consciousness is the ultimate form of consciousness. It is the light that which object consciousness is perceived. It is not the mind that has the capacity to say, but that source of formlessness which both the thoughts and the mind has risen from. Next slide, please. So can you, Spider Hell mentioned that the essence is time and space, especially in his home. Can you tell us about this?
Elistaran is existing as home center for collaborative and extending, reaching in virtual and actual exhibit. Whatever development in the process, we share in Facebook, Instagram, and by friends of friends in social media. Our audience is getting bigger and wider in cyberspace. So it's the Instagram is open, always open, and we just have to connect and make a time schedule to that we can collaborate. No? So every time it develop, I'm developing it every day because I maintain like the garden. I have so many plants, so you have to maintain like this time that is so summertime. So every day you have to water the plants and also the waste disposal. You have to manage everything here because my environments, we are a family of my it's 4 families with my sisters, and so waste management is very hard. Not because of my system that I cannot throw anything, so it's very hard for me to maintain something. So I have to think of those ways that I can make something out of it. Okay.
Next slide, please. So you can sense that more than finalizing as of now how the Ilistaran as an exhibition object will be shown, the goal or the objective remains clearer. Like in general, Ilistaran plans to be interactive and immersive, whether in real form or in cyberspace. The Terrier Health plans that it will interact with things, non-living and living alike, and it wants to consider forms as thoughts that became part of reality, and to show that objects carry the story of past encounters, and to show that all manners of encountering are divine and providential, And can you tell, as a closing, can you just conclude this talk with the last line, like when you say that everything, all manners of encountering are divine and providential, and this pre-written. Take a spiritual, like I think this is something very vital during this time as well.
I hope this pandemic will end soon so we can gather together and talk, interact, feel the touch, taste, and good life, and hear the sound of creation. So God bless us all.
Thank you so much, Perry Argel, for sharing your time with us. Kahit brown out dyan sa inyo ngayon. Yeah. Okay. Do we still have time for question and answer? We will be opening the floor for question and answer, and the questions are with our fellow regional curator, Lidia Limoso.
Hi, it has been replied. May reply na. So,
okay.
Nasagot na ni Stoika yung question sa
okay.
Q&A chat. But if there's more questions, maybe we can entertain right now. Okay. Since walang question na follow up. Wala. Okay. Okay, for AR Sculptura, there's question, and ICANN Creatives. Here's the question. How significant are folkways and traditions to contemporary art practices? Sabi ni. And okay, AR Sculptura, can you answer this question? And or I can. How significant are folkways and traditions to contemporary art practices? You can answer I can or AR Sculptura. Hello, are you there? Maru?
Hello, sir. What?
Okay, would you like to answer this? The question is, how significant are folkways and traditions to contemporary art practices? Did you hear me?
Yes, sir. Okay. So, again, sir, folk. How
okay.
Again,
for
sir.
Cultura, how significant are folkways and traditions to contemporary art practices?
Okay. Just like what we are doing right now, actually, in terms of architecture, we are translating these folkways or our ancient traditions, most especially the pre-colonial patterns, into something contemporary, because contemporary practice is like the trend today, and most of the people can really connect on that. And just like to our clients, we can introduce to them our ancient traditions, not by just telling them stories about it, because maybe it won't have really an impact to them if it doesn't connect to their current works. But trying to integrate these traditions into a more contemporary approach, like actually what we have here at our back. At the back, we have here some patterns that we use in some wall panels, ceiling panels. So because it's very important to try to convert these ancient patterns or whatever it is in our tradition into something contemporary, because that is the trend today, and most people would take it as something cool if it's into contemporary art. I think that's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Margaret from AR Sculptura. Maru, would you like to add something?
Hello, Sir Libby, and thank you for that question. Actually,
hello, we cannot hear you. Okay.
Similar with what AR Sculptura have answered, or cocktails, but
okay, we'll get back to Maru. We will continue with the next question for Soika. How do you integrate socio-political awareness and community engagement to your work? Nakoma, how do you integrate socio-political awareness and community engagement to your work?
Actually, more on personal kasi yung mga ano ko ngayon mga works ko ngayon. Bale, yun, hindi siya yun lang, hindi ko parang.
Okay, yung awareness mo is more of your reaction as an individual, di ba?
Opo. Kumbaga parang lang, yung mga trippings ko lang, ganun.
So, siguro gusto lang nila malaman, baka someday, or ano yung engagement ng public, kahit yung public lang. Yung audience mo.
In the matter.
Can you rephrase the question, Liv?
How do you integrate socio-political awareness and community engagement to your work?
I think when Chaika said that it's personal and individual, the individual and personal cannot escape from society. It is precisely a specimen of it, right? Sorry?
Yes.
Though he is part of his society, and whatever is true to him is true to where he lives. Siguro.
Okay, so thank you for that, and maybe it's time to wrap this up. And Gwen, can you do the honors to recognize the artists and the curators?
Okay, so thank you so much, Libby, and to the other regional curators. Soika, thank you, and Liv, your artists as well, like AR, Sculptura, and Ican. Everything has, you can see for now that everything has like evolved into something really growing and interesting, and you can see like the actual individual faces of each project. It's exciting. Okay. So thank you for everyone who are listening as well. Thank you for your time. And if you have questions, if you will be listening later on, like via YouTube, you may send your questions to Viva. You can visit their page or even their Viva website, vivaxcon.org. For now, I will be turning over the floor to Mr. Manny Montolibari.
Hi. Thank you very much to all our speakers. Thank you for the artists and the curators for sharing your time, and I think sharing your process, while we unfold all of these works that are going to be presented in our Kalibutan exhibition, The World in Mind. So I think for the moment, I would like to thank Mars, Nomar, Libby, Guinevere, and all of the artists. Maraming salamat sa inyo for sharing your time and your insights today. So to move on, I would like to invite everyone to April 17, to the continuation of our Beacon 2 Visayas Islands Virtual Conference. April 17, we will feature, we'll have a subject focusing on the art market, the post-COVID-19, how do we see the art market, this will be moderated by Don Atienza. And then we will have guests, international guests, Queen Chu and Jasdeep Sandhu. And on April 24, we will have the next portion, featuring other artists and our head curator, Dr. Patrick Flores on the third node, no, of works disclose, materialities of art. No, we will learn from the processes of each of the artists. No, and then we will have an island special featuring Panay, which includes Aklan, Antique, the provinces of Aklan, Antique, Capiz, and Iloilo. And then and I think that's it, no? For April, we will continue. It's going to be, we will have like May, June, and then after April, we'll have 2 more months, no? To actually go towards our culminating activity, which is the Kalibutan, the exhibition in mind. It's not the world in mind, right? The exhibition in mind. So thank you very much for attending today's session, our Saturday, no? And please, I would like to remind everyone to practice health protocols and keep yourselves healthy and safe while we go through this year, no? And trying to conquer the challenges of this pandemic in these times. So I wish you all the best and have a safe and productive weekend to everyone. Thank you very much.
Hey! Ang mga uwak kahulat sang akon kamatayon, dion na nga bag-uhon ang banas sang panglakaton. Numanang madangtan sa pinili kong dalan, kabay nga hindi pa ulihi ang tanan. Di nang mga sinya sa cross nga alagyan ang talagog talang-talang, nagtalang-talang, gatalang-talang, dapa-dapanaga padayon sa panglakaton. Kuy iining mga bugat nga dalalon sa imo paminsaron kag balat tiyagon. Kuy iining mga bugat nga dalalon, nga dalalon, nga dalalon. Dali na kay maimo ta sang bag-o nga kalibutan. Ako amigo gugma ang hari sa duta ray ng kalibayan. Ako nga abiyan magiliuso sa kausa sang kahilwayan. Peace be with you, man. Right! Yeah, pa 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 pa, yeah. Alright, feeling the blue, yeah. abyan ko sa ining tinion. Ipabutyag sa katawhan ang imong nga nabalan, ang kaalam ngaging bungkal sa kadutaan. Ipalaplag mo sa hangin ang unod sining sugilanon, para mga tubang hangkat sang henerasyon. Tanga mga katawhan nagtuhaw sa kadutaan. Ibalik ta ang balanse sang kalibutan. Mahimo ta sang bag-o nga alagyan. Padulong sa promisa nga katutaan. Ako lamigo, tugma ang hari sa tuta, ray ng kalipayan. Ako nga abiyon, magliusa sa kausa sang kahilwayan. Ang paghidait yara sa imo, kag yara man sa amo.